Hey, it's me, Big P, and I wanted to do a quick video going over my plans for the Settlers of the Calgary League. We are dusting off a classic. I have not started this in 3 years. In Harvest, we're bringing back, the video is still on the channel if you do want to see some gameplay of the Perforate Gladiator. I'm getting baited and believing the hype of both the melee rework and the Glad rework, or rather the Glad rework and the melee buffs, between the new numbers on the gem and just some adjustments to the tree, and a couple different like scaling stuff. I think we're gonna be in for a good time. A well-rounded build that will probably be both tanky and able to do some bossing, which Bleed has not been great at pretty much ever, unless you're doing the bleed bow stuff. We are looking to see whether or not it's going to be doable with the melee style. Again, I'm probably not going to do a practice run of this because there's just so much being changed in this patch that it's just really hard to say how it's going to all turn out without actually trying it. And I think that tree I have here as a gladiator is going to be a really nice platform to do some experimentation with new Warcry stuff, new bleed nodes, the new rage on the tree, and just generally melee things, as well as some new base types. The item progression is very SSF friendly. Soul Taker isn't even like required to make the build work. It's just a nice offhand. We are in the position where Perforate only uses your main hand, but we are going to force the dual wield meme. So we're just going to see where the gear takes us. I'm never really like a crazy gear crafter. I really just use my wisdom scrolls as my crafting mechanics for that first weekend, especially for something that doesn't require anything like that. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. The basic idea of the tree is just to go for bleed. Let's go over some interesting nodes that have been changed that we're reaching for. I haven't done a bleed build. I've done a lot of like corrupting fever, reap, exsanguinate type stuff that go into these physical damage nodes. Haven't actually done these in a while. So just these physical damage over time multiplier nodes are just things that we're rushing towards, really. This section right here is not my favorite. This is probably what we'd cut if we were going to get a second cluster jewel in the mix. Okay, I'm done, I swear. And then beyond that, we have a new reservation section over here that we're going for. We can also try maybe Blood-Soaked Blade if any tinctures are actually good enough to kind of throw in the build. Really remains to be seen. I don't know about the bleed tinctures, if we're going to have space for it, because I do want flasks for things like Chaos Res. If you're not sure with how block works as a mechanic, I can go over that a bit, and how we're scaling it here with like one point in the ascendancy point really carries it, but gladiators are notoriously bad against damage over time, things like ignites, chaos degen, stuff like that. So we're going to want ignite immunity, we're going to want chaos damage, or chaos res rather, probably get some of that on a cluster jewel and have another part of it be on a amethyst flask, and then hopefully get it on some other pieces of gear as well, as high as we can get it. To boost the tankiness, we are also kind of near these new nodes, nomadic teachings. That's plus 2 to all reds. We could also even dip into prismatic skin, which can bring up the tankiness, but we're going to play it by ear. Normally when you play a bleed build in a gladiator, you're like, okay, this is pretty solid, but I'm kind of wanting for damage. I think the tree we have set up here is pushing damage. It's a bit more of a softcore style gladiator without really push. I mean, we're taking a lot of the usual life nodes that you would take around here, but beyond that, in terms of defensive investment, if I take this node off, so you can see on the left here, we got 65 and 62 spell block chance and block chance. If we turn that off, you see how we completely lose. These are the determined survivor node on its own is just giving us an insane amount of block chance. just 39 base block chance, and then the overcap for that brings up the spell block as well, because the new versatile combatant is actually good enough so that we aren't going to try suppress. We're just going to block the spells instead of suppress them. I think that's normally I was like, I'm not sure. We should probably just go for suppress. It's safer, but it'll help make the gearing process so much easier, which is what you want to do on these early league starters. All you got to do is just throw a weapon in the offhand, and you get pretty much not block cap, but pretty high block. Excuse me, I just woke up from a nap and I'm stuffed to death, dying over here. Other new stuff that we're gonna try. I might want to try Valpact, but to be honest, like I was saying before, things like ignites, degens, any damage over time that you can't block because it's not a hit, you kind of want to have something going against that. And I think turning off all your regen, while the new Valpact is awesome, it's probably going to be best on Slayer and maybe some other archetypes. It's only for melee as well, so that kind of it is an opportunity to use it, but we're not going to use it. Beyond that, we are going into basically all the bleed nodes that you see here. Let's talk real quick about bloodletting the node, because it kind of makes Jagged Technique useless, potentially. The way that bloodletting works is a 10% chance to aggravate bleeding on targets you hit with attacks. Now, the way that this is worded makes me think that we're going to basically proc this on the first hit or two on anything that actually matters. Anything that we're not hitting immediately and exploding, it would be considered, you know, a tanky or rare mob or a boss, a unique monster, something like that. It's probably going to be up so much so that we'll really have to see. I don't like having to wait around for stuff. I'd rather just have all my bleeding be aggravated if possible, but we do have the more than skill that we can go into to make the block chance lucky, which would be even crazier. You know, if we do check this, then we are you know, capped as versatile combatant cap. Let's say that is true block, and then it'll be lucky as well, so it'll roll the 65 twice. Pretty insane in terms of, you know, what we can get out of it. Again, like I said, it depends on whether or not we're wanting for damage. A lot of times you are in a bleed build, so maybe just the consistency of this one will be nice. But just keep that in mind. You know, you might not need to have the ascendancy point if the bloodletting is enough. Of course, that all depends on whether or not we can see if it's actually on the enemy. That would help. I don't think there's going to be an in-game indicator that would tell us, so probably something we'll find out a couple of days, and or someone else will. I'm not going to be the one to do it. I'm not doing like calcs for like hits for Crimson Dance and stuff like that. I didn't craft any weapons beyond just this like very basic, you know, 400-ish DPS axe, which sounds pretty solid, but I think the way that quality works now, especially for physical damage weapons, it's going to be way easier to just get a nice beefy early weapon and just have that carry you through most of the game, especially because we are doing a new scaler here of Rage. Gaining, I believe, so our max rage is going to be, let's check in the calcs real quick. Max rage is 50 base, 10 from battle trance on the tree, so 66, and I believe we're getting either 4 or 5 on hit. 10 max rage up here, battle trance, 1, 2 rage on melee hit, and then 3, 4, 5 rage on melee hit, which will go nicely with 1% increased move speed for 5 rage. That kind of makes up for the challenger charges and stuff that we lost on Gladiator. Now that things like versatile combatant and the challenger charges don't exist anymore, I kind of do prefer having this this first. The order of the ascendancy is going to be determined survivor first, because it's going to be a really nice node to just have in the campaign. 10% more attack speed, double, that's 20% more attack speed. Very rare to get more attack speed. It's still going to feel very fast, I believe. And more consistent than the challenger charges were. It wasn't ever really anything you thought about, but like swapping between stances and stuff like that, we don't necessarily need to do that. Well, when I talk about the skills, I'll go over why. Might only be using flesh and stone and or blood and sand while leveling, because for the transfigured skill gem we're using, it doesn't actually matter. But yeah, the order will be determined survivor, gratuitous violence, jagged technique, and then war of attrition we won't need until the late game, most likely. Anything that's staying alive for 100 seconds in our presence. I have seen some bigger streamers kind of get down on this node, so let me just you know, bring it all down to actual players perspective. If you're not killing things within like 10 to 20 seconds, this node's great, and you're probably taking even more time than that. On a league starter, especially on a damage over time build, the fight will go long enough. This is, you got to really read the whole sentence here. Hits and ailments to rare and unique enemies for each second they've ever been in your presence. So hopefully even on bosses that like kind of go between phases like Maven and things like that, it will still be effective on. You won't have to reapply it. But even if you do, between Maven phases are like 30 to 30 seconds, a minute, up to 100 seconds, like you're going to get there, especially on a league start gear. So definitely going to want to take this. If anything, we would be dropping Jagged Technique for the more spell block. I don't want to really try. I mean, I can and I will probably do a bit of testing, but I can't believe that retaliation skills are going to really be worth it. Maybe the dual wield one that we have, if we can automate it or like put it on cast and damage taken or something like that, it'll help boost our damage a bit. Again, we're going to have to experiment with that. There's so much new stuff to try. I did just want like kind of like a safe, solid starter, safe POB that's consistent, as well as Weapon Master. Unfortunately, we are Resolute Technique because we're not crit, so we go all the way up here. That's another reason that we're going up here as well for the Rage and Fizz Dot stuff over there. The Axe one is the only, we're probably only going to be using axes, so we have to Leap Slam. We're not going to be able to do like mix up and stuff like that. Not necessarily stuck into it. It's really just Perforate that requires a one-handed sword or an axe. So we're not going to be able to do pretty much anything else besides that. And then, yeah, what else do I want to talk about? I guess we can go into the skills real quick, because there's not really much to talk about. I did mention that this would be what we drop to go into a Cluster Jewel over here. Cluster Jewels can get us some Chaos Res and stuff like that. Dirty Techniques, da-da-da-da. I was in this section here, but I dropped this whole section because I actually don't need the block. You know, we can get maybe a little bit more over block cap chance on another piece of gear just to really actually block it, but like 62 spell block for just like a couple, like that's really good. That's going to feel really nice, I think, and we will have to see. It's, again, going to be that sort of thing. We'll have to see how it works. If it is the case that this isn't great, then we'll drop this and go into like Mage Band and get some stuff here on gear and things like that. But you're Gladiator. You want to rely on block, especially if we do end up going into the more than skill as well over here. Let's talk about the skills real quick. The main skill is going to be Perforate of Bloodshed, scaling all physical damage stuff. Brutality. Oh, I did want to have the Perforate hatch notes that I can go over because there are changes to the gem that are important to note. But yeah, Brutality, more Fizz, Flat Fizz, which is very important now to be added because the added physical damage or the effectiveness of added damage has been boosted on pretty much every gem. So flat damage sources, which you normally just get on the weapon, are going to be really nice to have. Chance to bleed is a really nice one. Melee Fizz is just, core. These are some pretty basic core things here. And then Swift Affliction and Cruelty. I think we're finally going to get to use Cruelty and be sure that it's going to be a great skill because of the way that melee has changed. I think Cruelty is going to be in a lot of setups now. Again, I will have to be testing with this gem and other gems, but I do think the increasing the just having that big initial hit, increasing the melee damage on the stuff is going to make it so that Cruelty is the way to go as your last link. Swift Affliction just to get those bleeds to deal damage a bit faster. As far as auras go, we're going to have to see what we fit in. Determination has been nerfed and may not even really be necessary as a soft core player. With just running a block build might be enough, so definitely going to try Malevolence and War Banner as well. War Banner has been changed, unless I'm thinking of the other one. But everyone boosts your damage. You don't want conditional move speed or conditional block during a fight. I want the boost of damage, as well as we're going to have to fit in shouts to Captain Lance, showing me how to fit Pride in the build, kind of in a cheeky way. Herald of Purity is a minion that can be damaged, so we can run Guardian's Blessing and Pride, and I don't think we'll have any trouble having that uptime on it as well. It's the sort of thing that enemies need to be near, so it's great for the minions to kind of swarm anything that, stays alive long enough for it to matter, to have that Pride debuff on them, as well as Maim. We did lose Maim in the Gladiator Ascendancy, so we need to get it elsewhere, and we're not putting it on a totem anymore. As well as We do have a potential like clarity, arrogance, you know, just one of these low levels, maybe vitality instead, maybe both. If we can get, you know, swing it so that we can use this +1 to all max res. If you have reserved life and mana, you don't have to use this necessarily, but the +1 is very nice, especially if we're going to start bumping it up with like stuff like this later. We feel like we need to get a little bit tankier as we move into hopefully tier 17 maps. I do think that this will be able to do it on a pretty shoestring budget. You know, a lot of the damage is going to be coming from the gem itself. Let me go over the gem itself right now. Control F, Perforate. So the let's just talk real quick about the base gem of Perforate, how that's been buffed, because the one that we're going to use, Perforate of Bloodshed, is a little bit different. So really the big difference is the effectiveness of added damage. It's 218% at level 1, and that scales up to 622% effectiveness of added damage at level 20. Now keep in mind the original Perforate gem, no, where is it? It does have a 75% less damage while in blood stance line on it, but that's because each of these spikes, the 7 spikes, can shotgun on the same, and they often do. They do shotgun on the same target. Again, I'm gonna link the if you've never seen this skill before, I'm gonna link an old video if you want to see the difference between sand stance and blood stance. It's one of the skills that is affected by that. But we're using Perforate of Bloodshed, which actually doesn't have that line. It just creates 5 spikes, and I believe is only the blood style one, so we won't have the clear sand one that kind of shoots out in an area. Remains to be seen if mapping is still going to be you know, good enough with the bleed explosions. I think it should, but it's worth noting that our Perforate of Bloodshed only scales from 87% effectiveness all the way up to 245, which is still great. I mean, level 1 is now better than the previous level 21, and the mana cost to match, so that is something to just keep in mind. So I don't believe this will be a difficult gem to get in a trade league. You can even farm for, you know, an SSF, but it's not crucial to the build to the point. It's just like, we're the bleed build, we're gonna do the bleed one, because it has 80% more damage with bleeding. Simple as that. Beyond that, the movement skill, whirling blades would be if we could use a sword. I don't think we're gonna end up using a main hand sword unless for some reason there ends up being one that's better for bleed, but I don't think we're going to find it. It's probably just going to be leap, slam, faster attacks, and life tap. And then this is just, you know, don't set this up as is. These are just potential things. Do you want to automate your Blood Rage and your Molten Shell and your Berserk? It really depends, you know. Might keep Molten Shell and cast damage taken. Berserk, I'm not even sure if we're going to use it all. It has been nerfed to a point. We might value just being at capped rage more, giving us move speed and more attack damage more consistently. It really depends. Don't think we'll need like the buffs that it has here, but you know, we will see. And then rest in peace totems here. Arcanus brand with vulnerability and Reap as Culling Strike. We're probably not going to be using this full setup, but definitely want to have Vuln somewhere on the build, particularly because vulnerability quality is another avenue of getting aggravation bleed on enemies. So again, just another reason that we might drop out of that ascendancy node in the later game when we do have more consistent aggravated bleed on enemies. And then maybe we'll use a War Cry. I know Call to Arms has been reworked into auto exert or whatever. We're going to use the one that gives us a lot of damage. Again, I don't think we're going to be... Maybe we'll use the one... I don't know if it can still generate endurance charges in the same way. It is worth noting that there is a bleed mastery that gives you 3% dot multi-per bleeding on endurance charge. We don't really have a way to generate them. It's a lot of nodes to go for Disciple of the Unyielding, so we might want to anoint that. We can also go Enduring Composure as another way to get endurance charges. Not crazy about that, but we are in the area, you know, it is an option. This is only a level 86 tree. I feel like I dropped something, some points somewhere, but we'll see. Oh yeah, there it is. First talking about. So beyond that, I mean, again, we're going to be using this as a platform to try some of the changes. It's a huge update into the league. I can't believe this video is 20 minutes long. Have I really been yapping for that long? Again, I'm not really the type to do like gameplay leveling vids. You're just going to have to see that first weekend progress if you want to see. Again, The item progression and things like that are not really going to be anything insane. I don't usually buy any. There's not like a make or break, you know, several divine unique that's going to be implemented in my build. That's the only reason it works. I do think that, you know, Gladiator has been brought up into a state where you do have a lot of options now, and Bleed is one of them, which makes me very happy. This whole league should be insane. Let me know what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you think of the build. And yeah, let's do it. Let's see what goes down, and if Bleed works, or if I got baited again. Remember when I started Evolve Blade Flurry? Yeah, that was fun. All right, take it easy. Thanks for watching.